total profit over $1 million at about 113% return.
And you didn't have to build anything.
You just had to tell a good story.
All these deals are about telling a good story.
Now you have my
Right,
attention.
all good sitting here and looking at it and going, you can find these deals every day of the week, but unless you're educated and you know what you're looking for,
29 years old, and I discovered the power of subdivision.
how your first deal came about.
A normal salary. I just bought a normal house, 300,000, demolished part of it, left with the land. So that was easy to do.
So many steps in between there, right? And actually buy your first property. Can you just take us back to how you actually did it?
Tell me how.
So, Richard, can you now pull up?
This has been on the market for a good few years. So I knew I could do something special with this property, but I also knew it would scare developers because it's heritage listed.
Drum roll, please.
Yeah, that looks sick. It looks sick. Amazing development.
We can talk about what happened to this in terms of investment. I'll go.
Tell us what happened.
Well, first of all, can I make it sound even worse for you?
Hey guys, you're about to tune into an amazing podcast. We've got Dom here who's flown all the way up from Melbourne talking everything real estate. How you can buy real estate with no money. He talks about strategies that he's used over the years that have made him millions of dollars. Even right at the end, we talk about one project that made him $1 million and he didn't even build anything. Please tune in. You're not going to want to miss this one. What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unemployable podcast. Today, we've got an interesting podcast. We've got Dominic Bagnato, who's flown all the way in from Melbourne for one day to the beautiful Gold Coast. He was just complaining how shit Melbourne weather was and that he can't believe about how good the blue skies here on the Gold Coast. How are you?
Very good, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Adam? Dom?
Dom.
Yeah, Dom, all right?
And James, thanks for having me as well.
Yeah.
It's an awesome, though I had a great coffee this morning, complimented the barista, where they're from.
Melbourne.
The best baristas are usually from Melbourne.
So it's very
on the Gold Coast.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to, dig into more of your story. Sure. Obviously, we've been working together for a little bit now. You've been adding so much value to our community, which we thank you.
Great community.
But before we do that, how are the other weapons, or should I say weapon, on the podcast? Adam, how you doing?
Honestly, I got to bring in boxing gloves for these two. And now that I've moved to this chair, I'm actually concerned. As normally I'm sitting between the two of them, keeping them apart.
Don't worry about the boxing gloves, mate. Bet Apple's fine.
You know what they say? This is the love language of men. We shit talk each other. But it's good to be here, and I'm actually really excited to have Dom on because, like you said, Dom's in our coaching community, and he's just added so much value open-heartedly. And what I love about Dom is that he is a formal architect, but he's also got a big helping of entrepreneur and wealth creator in him. And he's done these projects for clients, he's done them for himself. And there's a difference between taking a fee for designing a house and actually having your own money on the table in a development. So if you're watching this and are wanting to learn about making money through real estate that's not too far down the road for most people, you're going to love this because it's, we're going to unpack some good stuff. I can't wait.
Yeah,
awesome.
James.
Mate, yeah, looking forward to it. I was, had the pleasure of having Dom on last Monday night to go through this, so I'm sure the listeners out there are going to get a ton from it because it's very, as Adam said, it's pretty very usable in the near term for most people and achievable. What's on offer today, so it's going to be a good session.
I don't know how I feel being so close to you. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this.
So many things I could say right now, Eric, but
Don't worry, you can't catch it from a metre away.
that's going to be a long hour for you.
Again, so yeah, Dominic's been adding a lot of value to the Unemployable community, and he's just doing it out of love, to be honest with you. He likes to see people, achieve their dreams and goals, and a lot of it is through property and developing. And having you last week on the Monday night call was amazing. I got that many messages after.
No, thanks, Eric.
And thank you for sharing those words. I love that. Adam sent that email out to the rest of the community, so I appreciate that.
I've had a few of your students reach out, and it brought them clarity.
Yes.
And development, that there isn't enough clarity for the average mum and dad.
Yeah.
And I just wanted that night to be a simple task that anyone can do.
Yeah.
And I just tried to take people through the journey and wear various hats. The hat of an architect, a developer, even a mum and dad. What hat can you wear? And just to bring life to a project for the average person.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before
So,
we get too deep in, I was going to say, Dom, just make sure you don't talk across it. Yeah, that's better.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit hard getting used to the mics at first, but over to you, Eric.
Yeah. So with Unemployable, our beliefs and our teachings are really, to build a business, obviously build the cash flow through a business and invest in real estate. That's what I've been doing. That's what Adam's done for a long time. And I know that's what you've been doing. And I've been very, very passionate about it, and passionate about teaching others as well. So where do we start, Dom? Tell us a little bit, I guess.
How I got here?
Yeah, your background. Obviously, you're in architecture, and not every architect turns into a developer. So
No, we've got a bad reputation, architects, as being wankers, the way we dress, what we do. But my journey started, my first mentor was probably my dad. My dad was in road construction, but just a concreter. And so I'm one of 7 siblings, but I was the only one that would go to work with him on school holidays as a 7, 8-year-old. And I fell in love with I'd get there in darkness at 6 a.m, the sun would rise, and there were these massive Caterpillar yellow trucks with the smell of diesel. I fell in love with construction. From that day onwards, I knew I was going to be involved in construction. And so my journey started there, but obviously my dad didn't want me to be on a site like that, so he tried to sway me around it. And I thought, right, I'll be an architect. I'll design buildings. I'll have my own projects. And that's where the journey began. But sometimes you don't know you've got mentors until you start to sort of look back in life. And I started high school in year 7, and I look back now, and I had an art teacher and a graphics teacher that took me under their wings at year 7, saw potential in what I was doing. And they stayed as being my teachers for my whole 7-year journey. But one particular teacher, she grabbed me at year 11 and she said, Dominic, I know you want to be an architect, and I know you come from a large family. You're supporting yourself. I'm going to teach you something that'll help you support yourself. And she taught me how to do 3D renderings of buildings. She said, I'll teach you how to do this, and then when you leave here, go out into your local community and get every real estate agent under your wings. And in those days, unlike the digital age today, they used to, I don't know if Adam, you probably remember, they used to...
First shot's fired.
Well, they used to advertise the sale of properties with line drawings.
They did. I remember that.
Black and white line drawings. There was no colour, no photos.
we're going way back.
We're going way back. This is the early 90s. So
Interesting.
I signed up about 12 local agents. So they would ring me with all their new listings. I'd go to the house. I would draw the house. I then offered floor plans because I eventually got into university and offered that service. And then one day they said, oh, do you reckon you can do our brochures on our window? Because we get printers to do them. There's a thing called Word that's coming out. I said, what's Word? And they go, well, you can do all different fonts. So I went home and asked my young brother, we bought him a Commodore 64, can you do a Word document? They're going to charge $30 for it. And so at the end of the day, it was a $100 package. And so before I knew it at university, I had a full-on business, and I employed other students, and we had heaps of agents around Melbourne. So I was earning the salary of an architect while still a student.
Just drawing floor plans.
Floor plans, 3D renderings, brochure. And at the completion of university, it was 92, there was a downturn in the market. And so all the kids went out to, get jobs for architects at $3 or $4 an hour. And I said, stuff that, I'm not doing that. I'm already earning big money. I'm going to just continue on my path, which was unusual. I got a mate of mine, and we rented an old factory. And factories weren't loft spaces. They weren't in vogue at the time. So we rented this little factory, a couple of old desks. We went to some government auctions, like BP were moving headquarters. We bought their curtains. We went to another government auction, bought a photocopier, and we just stared at each other. And I taught him how to do real estate work as well. And before we knew, we were just drawing houses. But this is what happened at the end of 93. The agents that were supplying us these properties were saying, hey, that property that you drew, a builder bought that, and he's looking for an architect. Do you want to draw up some houses for him? We said, no worries. So that became 1, then became 2, and suddenly we were in the know with multiple agents around Melbourne, and the architecture business outgrew the real estate sketch business. And then the boom started. And then we got into these developers were buying factories, and we started converting factories. And before we knew it, we just had we had staff. We were just growing. So we ditched the I'll call it the agency that was creating the original app. We ditched that. In one way, it was a sliding door moment because I probably could have had the first digital agency in Melbourne if I had seen what was going on then. I didn't. I dumped that. And we started designing for developers. And with them, we learnt the craft. They learnt the craft because all the developers we got on board had never done it before. It was new to them. It was the beginning of a cycle. And so eventually we thought that we're making money for these guys. Why don't we do it? And so my partner and I, Anthony, we went and we got our builder's licenses, commercial and domestic, and we started building our own projects while designing client work. So fundamentally, most of our projects were developers. They weren't worried that we were developing with them or in competition with them because they were seeing what we were doing, and then we were transferring our ideas onto their projects. So they loved it. And so we grew that, and that's how the business grew. And eventually our roles changed at the office. I became full-time finding projects. We brought in a partner to be the architect, and my other partner, Anthony, became the builder. And that was the start of our journey. Some of our clients could see that we were more than architects. I remember one project, I got there and some concrete didn't turn up. And they had a pour going. And so I got changed and started pouring concrete. And my client couldn't believe it. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Pouring concrete. I know how to pour concrete. I poured concrete all my life, my dad." And they could see that I was different. I was a different type of...
You're such a wog.
I'm such a wog. Hands-on.
The particular client was horrified because I said, "If I'm doing this, you're doing it as well." So he went and got changed, and we poured the footings for this project.
That's funny.
And that's all I had to prove on site. As soon as the tradesmen could see that we were not just architects, but we knew how to build. And that's the other key to success. We can design, but we can build. So if I design something for you, it's going to get built.
That's one big thing, with architects and building designers that I find they draw beautiful things on paper that can't be built a lot of the time. And I'm, currently at a stage where it's like you just want to engage someone that can design something beautiful, but you can actually build it, because there's no sense just going and doing full redesigns. So a lot of the listeners that will be listening to this will have no idea on how to get into the property market, right? But it's a passion of theirs, and it's something that they see that they want to do in the future. So I guess the model that you were using back then, where you were using your architecture firm as cash flow, that's right, funding, that's right, cash obviously coming into the business, is that you were then using that cash and investing in buying properties with that cash, or did you have other investors come in? So what we want to try and do is, because I know that there's a couple deals that you're going to break down for us, but before we get into that nitty gritty, I think it's very important for the listeners to understand how they can do something similar with finding a project and how you actually put these deals together. Because it's very easy to just say, yeah, we just did this, and then we had a builder's license, and then we bought our first property. But there's so many steps in between there, right, that need to be taken to actually buy your first property. Can you just take us back to how you actually did it, how you funded it, how much was funded, who was involved, and how your first deal came about?
Some of my initial projects, they were solo, and they were at a time where the business was at its infancy, so cash flow was low. But I'll give you an example. One of my first was a coastal property that I actually still own today. And my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, but my wife now, we drove down this particular street, and she said, "This is the best street in this area on the Ballarat Peninsula." And I just fell in love with the view, and I said, "I have to have this. It's my dream one day to have a beach house." And so I looked at this property, and I noticed, and now being an architect, I noticed something unusual, and that was, it was elongated across the front, this particular property, and there was a garage at one end, and what separated the garage from the house was a double brick wall. Now, that might mean nothing to anybody else, but to me that was, hang on here, if I demolish that garage, I'm left with a double brick wall on the boundary, and I know that's what we call a fire-rated wall. It can sit on a boundary. And if I demolish that and sell the house off, I'll be left with a property overlooking the water. Oh my God, I'm going to buy it. And at that stage, I was young. I sold my car, sold everything, and I purchased the property, demolished the garage, put it back on the market, and ended up with land that had a little structure on it that we can camp on with equity.
Yeah.
And so that was in my early years. I'm in my 50s now, so I was 29 years old, and I discovered the power of subdivision with just a normal salary. I just bought a normal house for 300 and something thousand, demolished part of it, left with the land. So that was easy to do on a normal salary.
Yeah, and I guess back then was a little bit different.
It was a little bit different.
Obviously, nowadays the cost versus wages is a lot different. So, okay, so
they weren't asking as much. The banks weren't asking for as much loan and your finances. They weren't really digging deep.
Yeah, back then you could just say a letter.
Well, it was a letter. It was a letter.
$80,000 a year.
And in fact, it was 80,000.
Was it? Yeah. Sign it off, and next thing you know, you
Go to the newsagents and buy your own payslip book and film it yourself and hand them in, and that was that.
Basically, they wanted 3 pay slips, which I just printed off and photocopied. So there you go. So that's true. So I did that solo. I did the next one solo as well. Once again, using the same trick. This time it was three dwellings, 3 units in a row. But of course, as time goes on, you realise that the banks were getting more stringent, and I realised at that stage you can't do it solo all the time. You need to get partners involved, and by having partners involved, obviously you can share the workload. They use all of the income that amongst the group as collateral, and so most of my life I've used bank money. But of course, in recent years, the banks have got even tighter now. So it's even harder to borrow money. So we go to second-tier lenders. Second-tier lenders.
Yeah, what's a second-tier lender?
Second-tier lenders are they're institutions, financial institutions, and they're regulated, but they have a policy where they'll accept lower documents from you, which is excellent. So you don't have to show all your financials. At the end of the day, there's only one difference, and that is, 2 differences. You don't have to give us all your financials, but we will penalise you with the interest rate.
Yep.
So you'll get 6% of the bank. We want 8 or 9 or 10. And if you do sell the property early, we have get out clauses which are harder. So in other words, you want to sell it within 5 years, we're going to penalise you 3 months of interest.
So if at the moment you're an average wage earner, right? Whatever that may be, say it's $70,000, $80,000, and you have an understanding. You're watching podcasts. You're learning, but you don't have funds and you don't want to partner with someone. So can a person that's earning, say, $80,000 a year, that knows of a property that's worth $1 million that they can knock down the garage with a double brick wall and subdivide, could they go to a second tier lender and just go, okay, I'm willing to pay a bit more interest, as an example, right? But not show as much documentation, which they call a low doc. How much actual information do they still want to see when you're using a second tier lender?
They'll still ask for your tax return. They may still even ask for serviceability and even a copy of your last 3 pay slips, but they're not critical. They'll still ask for that information.
Yeah,
it's easier if you can do it with someone else, but you'll still get the loan.
Yeah, because I've seen deals where you've got second tier lenders, and then you've got even other lenders.
There are third tier lenders as well.
Third tier, which you're paying a lot more interest again. But if the deal is that good, the interest shouldn't matter. A mentor of mine in the real estate industry told me, you should never worry about the interest rate, Eric, right? Worry about accessing the money. He goes, if you're worrying about the interest rate, you're in the wrong deal to begin with. If you're worried about 3%, 4%, 5% interest rate, which I find very interesting.
Does the deposit change a lot between these tiers of lenders?
Okay, it does. So a traditional bank will lend you 80% of the loan of the property. They really don't want to know what you're going to do with it. So you can't tell them you're going to demolish because you won't get the loan. Just tell them you bought a house or a property or whatever. Second tier lenders can lend you up to 80% as well. My last second tier lend was 75%, which is high. They like to go around what they do for commercial, which is 65%, but you'll get 75%.
Yeah.
I have done a third tier loan. I agree with Eric. I've never looked at the interest ever. In fact, I've got a philosophy: borrow all the money, even if you've got the money in the bank. I've always borrowed.
But I mean, that's that's a mindset, right?
It is, yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of people are in scarcity mindsets and the way they've been raised and seen their parents. Like I remember when my parents bought their first place, they were paying 18% interest. And my dad was in construction and my mom was working in a factory. And if one of them, they always told me, if one of them ever lost their job at that time, they would have lost the house, right? So how do you, mindset-wise, right, what are you telling yourself to go, yeah, I'm okay to pay 15% interest, no worries, and yes, personal guarantees and the rest of it?
I think there's a caveat just before, but just for the listeners here. When you said the interest rate doesn't matter, you're in the wrong deal. This is in the context of doing a value add project.
Yes.
For the husband and wife listening to this that are on fixed incomes that are just trying to buy a house to live in,
oh no,
the interest rate does matter.
Yes, that's right.
So,
Definitely.
yeah.
If they're just to qualify, so that,
Yes, definitely.
I guess what Eric is saying is if we have to pay a penalty of 10% to do the project and make $100,000, or don't do the project and make zero, I'll take the 10% interest.
that's it.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
So accept the terms and conditions as long as they're not onerous. I've got a way. I mean, even the last loan we did where we had to pay 3 months of penalty interest if we got out of the loan early. So if we sold out within 5 years, there was a 3-month penalty. So we were clever. We drew down the loan to the point where it was so low, the 3 months penalty was nothing. So we sucked the bank in.
Yeah.
But even third tier lenders are still legit. We did a project, but third tier lender is when you go to your lawyer and you say, hey, you've got heaps of clients who've got money. Can we borrow from them? No worries. Their rate's 12%. Yeah, we'll take it. And you still do loan documents. It's all official. It's all above board.
This is first mortgage lending you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
So
they'll do it even second.
Okay. So just clarify I do heaps first mortgage lending, but I'm just asking for the listener, what is a first mortgage lender and what's a second mortgage lender?
First mortgage lender would be you go to the bank and they lend you 80% of the money.
Right. And when you say to the bank, you're talking about Big Four, right?
The Big Four.
ANZ, Westpac, Commonwealth.
And so now you borrowed money, but you don't have any money to do the actual project. You need money to pay consultants or other fees. So you go to a second mortgagee and say, hey, can you lend me money to finish or do this project? And they'll say, yeah, we'll use the property as security, but we're going to be the second in line if you go under. And then there's third and there's fourth.
And the first mortgage is the bank.
Is the bank.
So
bank
it all goes to shit. The bank, the first mortgage lender, it could be a bank or it could be like what Dom's talked about here, a client of an accounting firm that says, hey, if anybody comes in the door and wants money against property, so I do first mortgage lending and we do it at about 65% LVR.
Yep.
Which means that if the property's worth $1 million, we'll lend them up to 650. And so if things go tits up,
you'll get the money.
We take the property off them, and we could sell it for 35% below market and recover all of our funds.
That's right.
And if we could sell it for more, different story.
And this is where the whole leverage game comes into play, right? Whereas if somebody is sitting on, say $100,000 and not knowing what to do, with the money, you then can leverage that and buy, say, a $800,000 asset with $100,000 as an example, rather than just putting $100,000 into something else and making 20% on the 100,000 would then give you 20,000 as an example. But if you're buying an $800,000 asset and it goes up by 10%, you're making $80,000, but you've only tipped in the 100. So your rate of return then, and that's what I love about the whole property piece is the leverage, because that's what you're doing, right? You're buying these properties, you're what I call manufacturing growth. So this isn't just, like Adam said earlier, buying an apartment for yourself to live in or buying a house for your family to live in. That's totally different, right? This is literally finding properties where you can manufacture growth, subdivide, knock down, improve, renovate, which is a couple of the deals that we'll go into shortly.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that invest in property, and basically what they do is they'll buy a property and they'll wait. They'll just wait until it doubles. So they've invested in property for capital appreciation. I can't wait. It takes too long. So I have to manufacture growth. And how do I do that? By seeing something in a property that I can subdivide, add value, or do something so I can get immediate chunks of money. So chunks of money won't sustain you because you'll end up using your chunks of money. So you've got to keep finding more of these. Now, what a seasoned developers will do is they will eventually start to keep some of them. So they might do a deal, sell off, take the money, do a second deal. And I watched this throughout all my clients that started from zero, is they started by just selling off, but eventually they'll say, well, we're going to do 10, but we're now going to keep 2. And then they grew their portfolio to the point where they eventually had security, had all these properties, and then they could use those to borrow the traditional way.
Now, you mentioned a comment saying you're seeing the potential. You're looking for properties. You're seeing it, right? Very easy for you to say seeing it because you've been doing it for a long time. You're an architect. You understand the ins and the outs. You can look at a garage. You go, that's a double brick wall as an example. Yeah. What would you recommend some of the viewers that are wanting to learn more about property? Where would they go to? Who would they speak to learn a little bit more about this? Because they don't have, 20, 30 years experience being an architect. I mean, I don't have that level of experience. I think I know what to look for at times, but I wouldn't, like one of the deals that you showed us last Monday, which we're going to break down today. I'd drive by that every day and have no idea, right? The reason why you bought that, which you'll explain. So what would you recommend to some of the viewers that are looking, at the moment of getting into property or doing a bit more research? Who should they be talking to?
I asked myself that question when I looked back at a lot of the initial clients I had, and they started with nothing, no knowledge of property development, zero. And I looked at them over a period of a decade, and they went from zero to multimillionaires. And one of them is now the second biggest builder in Melbourne, building skyscrapers. And I'm thinking, how did they do it? They didn't know anything about property. I hardly knew anything about property, but what did they do that was different? And at the end, I remember that a book I read on Henry Ford. These guys were smart. They didn't have to know anything about property. They surrounded themselves with the right people. So in other words, I remember one client said to me, I've been bankrupt twice. Someone's recommended me to you. They say that you know how to get development applications through. You're good at it. Will you take me on? But he knew nothing about property. But we built a team around him of consultants, me, the architect, best lawyer, best company consultant. And he didn't have to know anything about property. We put the projects together, made him money. He bought the second and third. And eventually he learnt the craft, my craft. So he'd come back and say, that one you did for me in X suburb? I've seen one that's similar. So going back to your original question, really, if I had to say, you got to start off with an architect or a designer, because that guy or girl will build your team for you. So if you're looking at multiple projects, start off with your architect and ask them, will they team up with you, undertake feasibilities? Initially, maybe you can't pay them, which we did it for free in the early days because we just kept getting repeat clients. And then the team will be built around you. It's hard for the average mum and dad to say, well, where do we go for these teams? It is hard, but you've got to source out the right. Now, I would stick to your local suburb. So this is an easy way to do it. Log on to your local council website, go to the advertised planning development applications, just go through them all and see if there's a common architect that just keeps popping up. And what you'll discover is in that suburb, there's a particular architect that does developer work. He'll know the craft of development. Get in contact with that particular architect and then just have a frank discussion. I'm new to this, never done it before.
So,
but I'm looking to buy some stuff. Town planners, architects.
There's a website that I use on the Gold Coast, not sure what it is in Melbourne, in Victoria, New South Wales, called PD, right? So P for Peter, D for Dairy, right? PD Online. Just like how I said dairy there.
Dairy, I thought just
right. I didn't want to say
like property development.
Yeah.
So
PD Online. P for property, D for development. That's better. PD Online, and that basically it's public, right? It's for the public, and every development is on there, right? So you just go in there. You can drive the streets, document addresses, and this is what I've done in the past when I was learning. I'd go. When I was selling shower screens and wardrobes way back in the day, I then write down the development sites, and then I'd go to PD Online and have a look at what they're doing, who they're using, and what they're developing.
I think also, it's about getting in target-rich environments. So there are organizations in Australia that run property education groups. Like you got Mark Rolton on the Gold Coast, you've got Dempner Bohold and I Love Real Estate Community, which is out of Melbourne. And I've had a number of friends go and do their $5,000 training, and then they have their weekends. And a lot of people have said, Carson and Shannon, I think, went through there, and you're basically in a room full of hundreds of mum and dads that are learning real estate development.
Yeah.
Now, they're not going to answer all your questions, but they're going to help you find a strategy.
Yeah.
So your first strategy might be doing splitties, or, splitties being putting two houses on the property where there's only one now. So I think putting yourself in the room, like in our coaching group, Dominic's one of our coaches. So if you're listening and you go, I would like to actually be part of the coaching group, and you can come and get coached. And if you have a development or something in mind, you can actually book a one-on-one with Dominic and go through the feasibility.
Yeah.
And that's actually how Dominic first came to our attention. He joined our coaching group, and two of the guys had identified a commercial project not more than a kilometre from where we're sitting right now.
It's true.
Two young guys. And we said some of the specs of the property. We didn't say the address. And Dominic, being his curious cat that he is, from Melbourne, jumped online, put two and two together, found the property. And instead of just saying, hey, do you guys want to have a coffee and talk about this, he did a full, analysis of what he would do with it. But the point I'm making here is that if you want to learn property development, put yourself in target-rich environments, whether they're coaching communities or go to weekend webinars or seminars or whatever, and be prepared to put your hand in your pocket and invest to get access.
You get to pay one way or another. I'd rather pay the upfront than the ignorant tax. So.
Yeah.
Well, James, just for example, James, you've done a big project, right?
I've done 135 keys with 80 townhouses and the balance in the house and land packs, from cow paddock through to handing the keys over to the property manager, the full DA, BA, construction management, and then actually sold the rent rolls to agents as well. So we rinsed every dollar out of it.
So here's my point. You've got Dominic and James, both coaches, and we've got Shannon and Carson and other real estate investors in our private coaching group. And so when you get into a private coaching group, you can just, you get the database and you call them up and you just say, hey, can we have a coffee? And you'll get 100% appointment rate. Yeah. That's why we coalesce these people together. Now, this is not just a promotion for our business coaching. It's actually going.
It's reality.
Go to I Love Real Estate or go to find which one suits you best.
I still
get around it.
I still have my Dempner Bohold. That was my first real estate course I ever did.
Me too, by the way.
I was in Australia.
I did that course as well. I did Mark's one as well.
Did you?
They do a good job.
But I still have the books. I still have the CDs.
So do I.
Obviously, I don't listen to the CDs, but still have the books. And there's still her, like the manufacturing growth is still relevant. Like there's so much relevance in what was taught 15 years ago to what it is today. A lot of it does not change.
I think what would be good for the listeners as well is also just clarify. You've got resi, commercial, industrial, retail, and aged care. Of those 5 sectors, if someone's starting out, which in your opinion would be the easiest one to pick off the list with the less complexity, and for someone who's, as we're trying to target in on here, someone on the standard wage and may have a few savings.
I hope you're enjoying the pod. Just a quick note to let you know that on October 19, we have a one-day training event, Unemployable Live, at the QT Hotel on the beautiful Gold Coast. This is going to be an amazing day. We've got some incredible speakers, including Rick Richardson, the man that successfully sued Microsoft for more than $500 million, from Byron Bay, who has over 200 patents. He'll be teaching us how to protect our intellectual property and business. We have Raf Hussain coming in to talk about TikTok shops, which I believe is the fastest growing e-commerce platform at scale in the world right now. We have Chris Gion coming in from Early Bird AI. I'm going to be talking. Eric's going to be talking. It's going to be an amazing day. It's fully catered. You get the recordings. You even get a one-on-one coaching call with myself or Eric, your choice, after the event. And we're going to have lunch on the beach together. If you would like to join us for that day, go to unemployable.com.au/events. That's unemployable.com.au/events. Tickets are almost sold out. Click on the link to go see it. Enjoy the pod.
100% residential, purely because the bank will generally lend you 80%. You're really trying to get finance. Once you head into commercial, industrial, it drops down to 65% very quickly, and then you need a lot of money, and it gets harder. So I would say residential. Also, residential is easier to rent out. You're going to get more return, obviously, on commercial, but if it's vacant longer. So I would say residential, 100% start with residential.
Why don't we give the listeners an example, like this particular one here, as a starting point?
Yeah, I'll have one question before that. And the question I have that I get asked a lot is, you're a person, you're on an average wage, and you found a property and you're looking for an investor. If you're partnering with that person and you guys are going to go set up a separate entity, right, which usually is a trust of some kind, how would you split it up? How do you approach Dom, right, with a deal and say, hey, I've got this, let's do the double brick garage deal.
And the person who's brought the deal has no money?
Has no money and not a lot of expertise.
Well, first of all, as a second person, I would do the feasibility, and I would say to myself, if I do this deal, I'm going to make $400,000.
Yep.
And if I don't do this deal, I make zero.
Yep.
So I'll go back and say, this individual has brought the deal to me.
Yep.
So of the $400,000 that is going to be made on this particular deal, what shall I give that person? If I gave them $100,000, 25%, is that unreasonable? My return's going to be 30 if I do that. But if I don't do the deal, it's zero. So you start somewhere and work backwards. And that's an open discussion with the guy or girl who's brought the deal to you.
Yep.
And they might say $100,000. That's awesome. It sounds like a lot of money.
Yep.
But I would look at the individual deal.
Yeah. And are you personally, are you open to looking at deals like that if people were to find something and show you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think people underestimate the concept of finding the deal. The deal's the hardest part to find. It's the hardest part to find, so it should be rewarded.
So I want people to hear what just happened there, because the number one thing I hear all the time is, I don't have any money because I don't have any money. And I'm like, just listen to what happened there. Eric said, if you find a deal, the beautiful thing about Australian real estate is there are a lot of people that are prepared to front up money to put it into real estate, because the truth is, it's one of, not financial advice, but in my opinion, it's one of the lowest risk places that you can go to invest money, in Australia. As long as you just do some basic pest control. If you've got to end up owning the house, it's one of the hardest ways to lose money.
That's why I asked the question, right? Because there's a lot of viewers that are going to be sitting here going, oh, easy for you to say. You bought a house 20 years ago for $300,000. That's now worth $2 million, and you're on $80,000, and you just wrote on a piece of paper you make $80,000 now. They want blood tests. They want my kids. They want everything for me just to get a loan. And that's why the question, right? Because if you can learn and go and spend $5,000 or whatever it is now to go and do a course and learn, the power is in finding the deal.
I honestly, if I was wiped out and had to start again and make money quick, this is one area I would seriously consider, because you're dealing with a high value asset where it's the same amount of work. You're going to have to do something for work. But the problem with most people is that we're conditioned that money is scarce.
That's right.
But actually, money is not scarce. It's just scarce for you.
For you.
But if you can get yourself in a network of people that have got money,
Adam, you hit on something that I was actually going to touch on, and you said it eloquently. I love property because you're one deal away from zero. You're back on your feet again. And I've seen heaps of people with one deal get back where they are. The client that I said that was bankrupt when he came to me, he's a multimillionaire today. We did one deal, $1 million on his third deal, though, but he made $1 million.
Yeah.
From that day onwards, he was off.
Unstoppable.
I've done some similar things where I said, my wife might say to me, Dominic, we need a deal. I want to take the next 6 months to experiment doing something, which is what we'll probably break down in a minute. I said, I'll go find a house. We'll subdivide. We'll flog it off. We'll make 300. We'll cover our wages for the next 12 months. Property does that. Now, to build a business takes years.
Yep.
But property gives you that chunk. What property doesn't give you is it gives you that chunk of money, but then you've got to keep going.
The other really powerful thing, and I heard Robert Kiyosaki say this, and I'd heard him say it before, but it never really hit me, is that the bank will give you the money to stake the table. So, like, if you need to go and save $1 million, it's extremely difficult. It's much easier to save $200,000. Like, that's just such an obvious statement. But if you can save $200,000, The bank will give you $800,000. They will stake you to go play at the casino. What does that tell you about the asset class? For one,
there's a reason why they do it.
There's a reason why they're prepared to put so much risk on the table. But this is money that you do not have to save. You do not have to pay tax on, right? You had to save $200 and pay tax to get it left over. They then give you $800,000 tax free. In fact, it's tax deductible to go and start winning.
That's right.
And that's why real estate is so hard to beat.
James, you had a question.
More sort of statement is that, Adam just said before about, did you hear what just happened? If you actually heard what happened just then the next step is, how hard would it be to find Dominic and go and do what Eric said, jot down a few deals, work out what's working, what's not, and knock on Dominic's door, who probably does have the cash. And so it wasn't that I would go, this is what do I do? Yes, I do participate. It's no, you actually would participate. So knock on that door. So
That's right.
The next question to that is, what states do you operate in as an architect? Are they someone in New South Wales? Dom, I got a deal, or no? It's Victoria, it's Queensland. Just to get really granular.
I'm a believer that they can come to me and I could operate all over Australia, but I have a preference that if you're a mum and dad in New South Wales or Queensland, local knowledge is essential. So first of all, get to know that market. But ideally, you'd love your consultants and architects to also be based in that area as well. That's not to say I couldn't do a project anywhere else in Australia. I could. But those local people just have that extra 10% or knowledge that will just take us to the next level. So that's I would probably do that ahead of calling me.
It's little things like Eric rang me the other day because 5 minutes from here, a very dear friend of ours who we play poker with has done an amazing development that's just down the road here, literally 500 metres from here. And he's taken storage sheds and he's converted them into this super classy boutique retail strip. But they were literally like Storage King sheds that were 50 years old, and now it looks beautiful. And one of the tenants that's gone is a bathing house with plunge pools and all this stuff, and one of the Gold Coast best restaurateurs has just opened an Italian restaurant there.
Awesome.
And we're sitting in Southport right now, which is, it's one of those areas everyone's like, it's got to go at some point because it's full, like basically the real estate follow the prostitutes and drug dealers because they usually, like in Redfern in Sydney, there has to make money at some point. Fortitude Valley and Southport's that, right? But when you see a development like that going down the street, and you see a line out the door for the new patisserie and the new coffee shop in that sort of gentrification, it's only really the locals that know. And Eric rang me when he saw the line out the door from the Italian restaurant. He saw the signs up for the cold plunge place. He's like, I think I need to start buying some houses around the studio.
Sometimes it's all it takes is that.
But it's that local knowledge, right?
That one retail center.
Yeah, I was standing outside before I came in, and I had a look around and I thought, this is unusual. There's commercial property on this side. There's a cafe on the corner, but there is a house next door to a multi-story apartment. I think I'd buy it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Where we are now, where the studio is in this commercial complex, this was two old Queenslanders at one point.
That's right.
And if you stand upstairs, we got lawyers above us. If you stand above us right now and you were to look from their office, you see the ocean.
Yeah,
from where
it's unbelievable.
And so you can still buy, like Sam, who's a dear friend of the pod. He bought a house down the street. I'm talking 50 meters that way.
Yeah,
4 bedrooms with a pool, right next to an oval. 2 minutes from Ferry Road Markets. 2 minutes from Porsche. 2 minutes from Ferrari. 2 minutes from the two best private schools in Queensland or the Gold Coast for $850,000 about 10 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Tell me that's not going to be double that price in 10 years, in your opinion.
You've got to practice observation. I always say I practice observation. I'm an observation architect. I did 2 deals in Melbourne. The first one was I proposed three-level townhomes or offices at the end of a particular street. But it was a street that was made up of other houses. So this development I was proposing was going to seem out of kilt with what was already there. But when I looked down that particular street, I could see doctors were moving in, medical practitioners. I thought, hang on here, this street's changing. And if this street's changing, the local council wants this to change. I'm going to hedge my bet. I'm going to do this project. I'm going to break every rule, and they're going to back me. And they did, because they wanted change. That was the first deal. Around the corner, this was over Christmas. I found a property. Once again, I observed what was happening in the area. I thought, I'm going to get plans and permits. I'm going to flip it by Christmas. We flipped it to a shower screen guy, and he went and did the project. So sometimes it's just observing what's happening in that particular area and hedging your bets. Go to local council, make some phone calls.
One other really good tip I'll give the viewers is I'm part of a Facebook group, and anybody can. It's free. You got to answer a few questions because they vet people, called Property Development Australia. And it's an unbelievable Facebook group, to be honest with you, very well monitored. And it's got deals, right? You got people looking for finance. You got finance guys that are looking for deals. You got other people putting sites together, all on a Facebook page for free. And there's deals on there all the time. One looking for money and others looking for actual deals.
Australians just are typically terrible networkers.
We are.
They don't know how to build relationships. Just build relationships. Go pick up the phone. Go and have a coffee.
And like it's great too, because if you're putting sites together, right? And I own a real estate agency. I'm shooting myself in the foot a little bit here, but for people that it's their first deals, if it's a good deal, you can put it on. I'll show you a property development Facebook page and say, hey, I've got a deal. It's a duplex site. It's been DA'd. It's ready to go. This is the price. And if it's $1 million and you're going to be paying someone 3% commission, you just save 30 grand. That'll pay for your consultants for your next project. This is how you need to be thinking.
Also, I've analysed all of these property courses, Marks and Dimfa, and they've all got particular strategies. But this is just my observation, but what I've noticed is they don't necessarily teach you how to fish. They'll take you to the ocean and they'll say, if you throw a line out here, could be a suburb, you'll pick up this property. So I've worked out over time, no one is teaching you what I know. My clients all learned along the way, because once they learn the craft, they know what they're doing. So I'm on a crusade at the moment, even launching some courses or some knowledge to teach people how to fish, which is what I was trying to do Monday night.
Yeah.
If I can teach you to see what I see, it'll be hard the first one, but the second one will get easier, the third, and by the fourth or fifth, you're right.
That's the experience, and a lot of it can be is only done by doing. When I did my first commercial project, I didn't really know what I had an idea, but then I did the first, then the second, and then I developed eyes for it, and then in the end, it's just clear as day, but nobody else can see it. And I think that's another point that I'd like to make, is that the other wonderful thing about property, apart from leverage and apart from the fact that only one deal away, you can make a literal fortune in one suburb. Like, you don't need to be all over Australia, but just pick 2 or 3 suburbs near you that you become an expert in. And I made millions and millions of dollars in Burleigh Heads, right? Like, just Burleigh, in 2 commercial precincts. I knew every street, I knew every property pretty much, and you just need a little bit of knowledge in a small area, and you can just crush.
Once if you walk down that particular street, Union Road, if I took you on a tour of that, we would count 15, 20, 30 properties that I've done all along that street, strip and street. But what happens after a while is, if you start to do certain types of deals, and the local agents know you do those deals, they bring them to you. Hey, Dom, just saw a church for sale. No one knows what to do with this church. You know what to do with this church. Buy it. So they ring you.
Amen.
Because they learn your behaviour as well. You're the sort of guy that cuts off garages. Hey, here's 3 properties where you cut off the garage.
That happened in Burleigh. All 3 of the deals that I did most recently there in the commercial precinct, none of them were on market.
Yeah.
They were all, the agent called me and said, hey, you just bought round the corner. I've got something coming up. Are you interested? Because the agent just wants the sale as quick as possible. And, and
the return, they want you to give it back to them.
Yeah. I bought one for 1.7, sold for 4.5, right? And that was in like 3 years. That's the power of just knowing an area. And like right where our son lives in Labrador, there's this family that are doing small scale, what you're going to show here. Yeah. They're buying a block or 2 blocks and putting 2 to 6 townhouses on there. And you go around, and after we counted up the other day, I think they've got 8 or 9 projects going now. They started one, but it's the same family with the same signs, and they're getting economies of scale. They've got the teams are moving around between the properties. And the only limitation, once you know the suburb and you got your team, is funds. And again, once you've got a reputation, the funds. And that's why real estate's so powerful, because so much money available for it starts with one deal.
Even to get into the first home buyers market, my younger brother and sister 10 years ago came to me and said, "Oh, we've got no money. We're getting married. What do we do?" I said, "Well, you've travelled the world 3 times. You've had 3 cars. You've done everything. You haven't done what I did, which was save." And so what we did is I found them a little project to put 2 townhouses in a laneway, and gave them some scope in terms of budgets. I said, "Right, scour the internet. These are your budgets for taps, handled, whatever." Cut a long story short, we built these 2 townhouses. They moved in with 200,000 equity each in the project already.
Amazing.
And they still own those houses, have moved on to their family homes with kids, but they still own those 2 townhouses. So if any first home buyers are out there and they're saying to themselves, "How do I get into the market?" You can't do it on your own. It's too hard. It is so hard. So one of the ways you would do is you would collaborate with either another couple or an investor and say, if we buy, and this is the ideal one that you're going to bring up, if we buy this project, I'll take the house, you take the land, work out the equity, and let's go for it. And at the end, you will have some or part of the deposit built into the project. Separate the project.
This is, again, I want this young
I
people.
love this one. Yeah, this one's...
I want that comment first, and then we'll go, because what he's talking about is this actual case.
Okay, that actual case study, because I was just going to say, like, I want the young people to really hear what Dom said, because there's a lot of pain out there with our listeners. They can't afford to get into the property market, but I hope you're starting to put 2 and 2 together here and go, if I invest in education, I might be able to leverage that. If I invest in education and network, whether it goes into that Facebook group to learn, or you go do marketing or course or Dimfness program or whatever, education plus network is the fastest way to grow your net worth with the least amount of money. So if you're a young person, you got loads of energy, education, network, like Sam was doing that with our commercial property around the corner. He found the site, went to us to get the money and so on, and got a piece in the deal if it went ahead. So that's a really smart strategy. People need to get money. Education
is number one. Someone asked me the other day, if I could give you if you had nothing, what would you need to start your world again? What would you need if you lost everything? I said, a pen and a piece of paper. That's all I need. A pen and a piece of paper. I could start drawing. I could start writing and education and creating a deal. That's all you need.
Access the internet to find a deal.
That's it.
And that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
Once you got the knowledge, nobody can take it.
All right, guys. So I think this is good now to get into this case study, which is a real live deal that Dominic has done. I guess for the viewers, Dom, just so you're aware, some people won't be watching this on YouTube. They'll be listening to it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So as you're explaining the deal, make sure that you keep that in mind. And some people won't be seeing this visually. So explain it as you're going through it. So this one is 29 Union Road in Ascot Vale, Victoria.
That's right.
That's right. Inner suburb of Melbourne, would you call it?
Yeah, it's within 6 kilometres of the city, so it's really, really close to the city. Yeah.
So for those of you guys not watching, we have it up. We have it up on the screen. He's got a few slides that he's going to go through. We probably don't have as much time as we did on Monday to go through it in that amount of detail. So I'll let you run with it, and then if we have to push through a little bit.
Okay. So essentially, I saw this house being advertised on a real estate platform. And the first thing that caught my eye was that the price didn't seem to match the house. In other words, it seemed like they were either underquoting the house or there was something wrong with this house because...
So I want to stop you there.
Yeah.
Exactly what Adam just said. You obviously knew this suburb.
I know this suburb
right
very well.
You need to understand that this is undervalued. You need to understand the values of other proproperties.
Yeah.
And it shows here, is it $1 million? I can't really see it.
1.1 million was the list.
Is that right?
No, that wasn't.
No,
the price. That's the
they were
price.
quoting 950 to $1,050,000
Okay.
for essentially 600 square meters of land, when traditionally 250 square meters of land with a house on it sells for that and more.
Yeah. So we're not talking about a $3 million deal,
right.
a $5 million deal. So think about if there was 2 parties involved in this, about $500,000 each, give or take.
To give you an idea, this price bracket is first home buyer price bracket
in Melbourne. Yeah.
So it was $1 million range. What we're looking at here, guys, is an old house from, what's that, the 50s or 60s?
Probably even earlier.
Yep. On a 600 square metre block.
Yep.
In Ascot Vale, Victoria, 29 Union Road.
That's right.
Yeah. So talk us through, what's the story?
So once I looked at it, I thought, I kept going. So my routine is, I got to understand what's wrong with this property. What's wrong with this property? So I started doing analysis, and I couldn't bring up the answers just by doing a data analysis. So I went down to the property, and the Section 32s weren't ready. So I did my own homework to find out, is there something about the zoning that's wrong with this?
What's a Section 32?
So when you buy a property, the vendor, the person selling the property, has to disclose any information about the property. Is it subject to any land taxes? What's the zoning? Are there unpaid for bills? Is there a building permit? They just have to disclose anything. So is anything being disclosed? So that wasn't ready.
That's like going to devalue the house.
Sorry?
That could potentially devalue it. Sort of.
Yeah, so once you got that information, you think, oh, hang on here.
Like James Denham used to live there.
Yeah, 100%. For free.
Don't pull out the blue light.
For the drugs and hookers.
So basically, the Section 32 is filled with documents that, as architects, we go after those very quickly online. We don't have to wait for the Section 32. So I quickly did a search, which anyone can do, any mum and dad. And the first thing that popped up that was a red light was this site is subject to flooding. And that is a really bad thing for a developer, because what it's saying is, hang on, if I buy this property, I might not be able to develop it because it floods. I mean, logically. But the reality is that's not how it works. All it means is if you make an application to council to do any work on this property, they will refer the application to the water authority, who have a final say. They can say, hang on here, we don't want Dominic to do what he's proposing, or they'll impose conditions. But let's dig a bit deeper. I didn't just want to know that it flooded, because there's two types of flooding. From inundation, basically there's a river, and it's going to flood this house once every 100 years, or from stormwater discharge. So in this particular case, it was because the council drains weren't up to scratch. So in other words, my mentality is, well, Melbourne Water is going to see this and say, it's got nothing to do with us. It's a council issue. But we'll tell Dominic, if he does develop this property, there's a certain flood line. In other words, I mitigated the risk by finding out information. Now, while I was finding out this information and was getting encouraged, the agent was telling a different story. This is where you've got to listen to the agent. Hey, interested in buying this property? Yeah, no worries. Just letting you know, this is the agent talking to me. It's subject to flooding. Oh, no worries. That mean you can't develop on it? Probably not. I love that. I love it when they talk like that. Oh, fair enough.
If you're a first-time home buyer walking into this, right, if you're saying it's a first-time home buyer kind of price range in Melbourne, and you hear that, you're shitting your pants, right? You're not going to go.
You're just going to shop somewhere else. There's no way you're going to buy it.
You're not going to buy it. You're not going to buy it. There are other issues that more architecturally I could see. The neighbour had some solar panels that you can't shade. There was a particular nasty tree that the neighbour had that would extensive root system. It was opposite some social housing. Some people find that undesirable. I couldn't care less. And there might have been a couple more little things, but they were all fixable. So as soon as I realised, hang on here, the reason they're underquoting this is there's a perception about its location that's been magnified, not only by the local agent, by everybody. It's not real. So I'm going to go to this auction because they're telling a story that's not right. And so on auction day, as I said on the presentation, the auction guides were with me. And other little things went my way as well. Is traditionally at an auction, auctions are very big in Melbourne. Every second, they're huge. And so generally you want to build up the auction price. So if you're quoting a range, you want to start low, give some hope to the buyers that they'll and eventually take them. But I felt that the auctioneer cooked the auction. He started it way too high. And I remember looking at a couple of the first home buyers and their shoulders just dropped. He just started it way too high. In which case I was the only bidder.
So the other bidders that were there when you're because auctions for a lot of people, they're quite nerve wracking, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's got these strategies on never be the first bidder and all these other types of things. What were the other how many other bidders were there?
None.
So no one.
There was other people there.
Oh, there were other there were definitely buyers there.
Yeah.
So they were expecting to say, hey, they're quoting 950 to $1,050,000. Some are naive and thinking, we'll pick this up cheap. The auctioneer went straight to the highest quote price, which is $1,050,000. It gave the first home buyers no opportunity, because developers were out of the race because they're scared of the flood issue. So I knew they were out. They're not there because I'm looking around and I know there's no one here.
And it's funny because, like, all you did was make a phone call that was for free. Did it cost you money other than time?
Not only that, I knew that the water authority would say, hey, if you want to develop this property, you've got to build above the flood line. But how do I know what the flood line is? I will tell you, it's 100 metres above Australian sea level. Well, how do I know what Australian sea level is? Well, traditionally, you've got to pay a land surveyor $3,000 or $4,000 to do that. I ain't going to do that before I'm buying a property.
Yeah.
If you search enough on the internet, you will find some map, some statistics somewhere that someone has on that site, which I found, which told me the level of the site. And I put two and two together and realised that the house was already above the flood level.
So just after some investigation,
homework,
your competitive advantage went through the roof. Other developers busy looking at deals going, oh, too hard, next. And then there's Dom just holding the cards.
Just saying, what are the 6 problems? Can I solve them before I go to auction? What are the 6 problems can I solve? If I can solve them, I'm going. Because I'm hoping the other competitors haven't solved these problems.
Yeah.
And so you went to the auction, the other people got scared out of the water. What did you offer? And then it got passed in, I suppose.
So my initial numbers before going to auction were that I'd pay 1.2 for this.
Right.
I'd pay 1.2.
So what did you offer? You bid at $1,050,000.
Well,
got passed in.
It was a vendor bid of $1,040,000. And so I wanted to be the person that would negotiate with, so I had to put a bid in. I said $1,050,000.
So just so everyone understands, at auction, if the property gets passed in, you still need the highest bidder to have the first right of refusal to negotiate
before they go somewhere else.
So it got passed in at $1,050,000?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So they brought me in and said, look, now I'll backtrack a bit. I did a bit more homework than just the data on this particular site. So I probed the agent a little bit more because I could tell it was just renovated, this house, which is another thing, was just renovated. So the agent disclosed that it was a deceased estate, that the couple of the kids were from country Victoria. They had travelled in for this auction. So that was going to be a hassle if they had to come back, if they put it back on the market. It was a long weekend. I don't know why you would sell a house on a long weekend. So I had all these advantages. So when I went inside, they said to me, look, Dominic, you're at $1,050,000. They want 1.1. I said, okay, I'll give them the 1.1, but I want a long settlement period of 4 or 5 months, whatever it was. And they went back and they said, oh, would you do a bit more? I said, no. I'll have to go back on the train to country Victoria and come back next week. And they went back into the room and they said, you got a deal. And so we signed up. So I had and I asked for immediate access. I want the property in my possession, but what I'll do for the young, or for the couple that, for the siblings that inherited this property, what I'll do is I'll release the deposit. So there's a document called a Section 27, which says if I sign this Section 27, the deposit that I pay gets released to the vendors.
How much was the deposit?
Well, I negotiated that down as well from 10%
of course,
to 5%.
So you put 5% down, 1.1 million, 5-month settlement?
Yeah.
And immediate possession. So
immediate possession.
Does that mean that you could rip the roof off the next day?
No, it doesn't. And I didn't want to do that. But I had in plan that if I did want to do that, that I would put some safety measures and put a deal to them and say, hey, I will improve this property with what I'm going to do. So if I default for whatever reason, you've got a better property. But I didn't come to that, but that's what I was going to do.
So you put down a $55,000 deposit. You had access to the property to do what you needed to do with it within reason. And you had 5 months to settle, to actually come up with the balance of the money.
And submit my development application to council.
Yep. So in between you going unconditional on the property and the 5-month settlement, what did you do in between that time to improve this property?
So the immediate thing that I did was, well, my wife is an architect as well, so we jumped on board and quickly prepared our application to remove part of this house, the old 70s addition at the rear, which would then highlight a 2-bedroom, the original 2-bedroom home on there. Ironically, on only 300 square meters of land, would be worth whatever, other properties within the area, and we would subdivide the side of the land off with another double story. So basically, we'll propose a second dwelling on that same site.
So you're going to keep the front house and then build another house?
Well, in this case, it was on the side. Keep the side house and propose a second home on.
So now, just for clarity here, because this is a point people that might start the cogs might to grind, is that you don't actually own the house; it's still in their name. How am I going to get a development application into council if I don't even own it? Whose name's it in, and what happens at settlement, so I can actually get the value of that development approval prior?
This is something that actually nobody knows. The development application never goes with the applicant; it goes with the land. The land owns it. I could default. It's the land's approved, and the owners or the next owners or the next 10 owners can just make a quick call to the local council to discover planning approval.
So they just adopt it.
Yeah, a client of mine purchased a property a couple of years ago in Melbourne, and went to auction. It was never disclosed at auction that there was potentially a multi-story building approval. I did all the homework. I rang him up. I said, "We've got a permit for a 15-story building." He goes, "What? Is it live?" I rang up the council and they said, "Oh, it's expired a month ago, but we give you 3 months grace." So I said, "Here's the application, extended time."
Just watch that mic there, Dom.
Yeah. So back to your question, it goes with the land owns the approval, the land.
So could I in theory like go and get a DA on that house across the road here on my dime, even though I don't own it?
Yeah, but the first hint that the owners would find out that you did that was in Melbourne. They make you put up a sign on the front fence.
Here they don't do
busted.
Unless you do an impact accessible, code accessible, you don't need notifications. So,
yeah, sometimes in Melbourne you don't need it either.
But just for clarity though, in Queensland, if I was to go and try and do the same thing, we'd still need, what generally try and do is to get the owner who still owns it, the application made in their name, and therefore if you do default, they've got a DA in their name. It's a point of leverage or a good part of goodwill. If you walk away, there's a $50,000 DA in your name, Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the pod. I wanted to share a really interesting stat with you. In our e-commerce business where we sell electric toilets, we noticed that nearly half of our online visitors visit our website and do their research outside of normal business hours. Now, when you think about spending thousands of dollars a month on traffic, it is pretty important that you can service your customers when they're on their website. And that's why we used Early Bird AI. That's EARLI rather than Y, earlybird.ai. The team there helped us implement AI-powered web forms, which when somebody has a question about anything to do with our product, our website actually texts them immediately and engages with them in a discussion to assist them with whatever they want to know and is trained to move them towards purchase. We've also installed a talking website, or it's about to go live, where you can literally push a button on the website and it connects with an AI-powered voice that sounds like a natural Aussie-speaking person, and you can literally just talk to the screen and have the AI engage with them, answer all their questions, and again, direct them towards a sale. If you would like to learn other ways, including those, to grow your business through very smart AI, go and talk to the people at earlybird.ai. You can get a free audit of your business. It's not just for online businesses. We're working with plumbers, medical centers, all kinds of businesses over there. Go to earlybird.ai. I can't recommend them highly enough. With that said, enjoy the rest of the pod.
But sometimes you've got to pick who you're dealing with. These were two elderly people that had inherited a home. They wouldn't want to be involved.
They'd be hard to get a hold of. They might not have an email.
And the applicant, there are merits. You got to understand, as soon as you become the applicant, you're also responsible for anything that happens as well. So if you did something untoward, those people are the applicants.
The other thing is, before you bought that, like you talked about the flood and everything, but you know, based on the frontage and the size of the land and the city planning guidelines, that you could do that. So how do you, is that where you talk to a town planner?
Yeah.
I know the answer. I'm asking for the audience.
Okay, so remember we spoke about building a team up. So the team is an architect, but it could also be a town planning consultant who might not know how to design homes or know that you can put a second home on there, because he might say, look, you can put a second home on there, but I don't know how you do it. So he might have that. That's where the architect comes into play.
So you talk to, you build a relationship with an architect, and then they'll sort of overlay the town plan and say, it needs to have this much frontage, this much minimum land size, and if you're shopping in these areas, and if you find a home, give me a buzz and I can just check that it can actually be done. And then after a while, you sort of know it. But when you're first starting, you got to know that, right?
when you get to the level of my experience, that information isn't enough because I'm trying to go further because sometimes I break the rules. And how do you know how to break the rules? You just need knowledge over time. So, yes, a town planning consultant would have also scared them as well. I'm just
thinking about the person listening right now. They're going, how do I know that you can put 2 dwellings on a house that I drive past?
And the beauty of this is you actually don't need to know. What you need to know is the zoning in the area, which your town planner will give you all of that information. You could literally sit down with a town planner, right? Pay him $500 for the hour, and in that hour he will explain to you. Even if it's $500, some of them don't even charge that much, and some of them don't charge when you have a relationship. And like you said before, a key is be an expert in one. When you're starting, be an expert in one area.
So you would go to a town planner and you'd say, I want to find sites in Southport or Labrador or Maribyrnong or wherever. Find a town planner that's sort of in that area and say, I don't know anything. Can I pay for an hour of your time? What should I be looking for in terms of frontage and land size and what areas, what streets and areas? And then you can go shopping based on
you go shopping. You can go door knocking. And then you can go on realestate.com and put filters on.
Yes.
Right. As soon as a property does come up for sale in that area, you already know, okay, that could be subdivided as an example.
Correct.
So, Richard, can you do us a favor and pull up, it's a few slides down, the actual proposal, which has the 2 houses, the existing house. Yeah.
This is a visual of what you built.
Yeah, so this is a visual for the people listening. We just pulled up a visual.
So you got 2 houses side by side, one sort of the old house, and then you got this new modern house next to it.
And you'll notice that the upper level of the new is set back away from the front because anything towards the front would have overshadowed the neighbour on the south side of this development. That would have overshadowed their solar panel.
So there was a few intricacies, obviously.
So traditional townhouses, you'd have 2 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs, and then you'd have we couldn't do that on this. But once again, it eliminates a lot of potential developers. You can't even put 2 bedrooms up there, that sort of thing.
There it is.
Sorry.
Yes. So you've basically turned one house on a block of land that's about 600 square meters into 2 separate dwellings, each on about 300 square meters.
Yeah, but let's backtrack a bit. Say we didn't want to build. I actually, instead of adding to this property, I proposed to demolish the previous extensions.
Yep.
And by demolishing the previous extensions, the original home is still a 2-bedroom, bathroom, kitchen home with a backyard and a car spot. And the data is saying just the house and the little bit of land it sits on, the data from the rest of the sales in the area is saying that alone is worth 1.1. Forget the land I've cut off. So all I have to do here is demolish something, propose subdivision, put the same house back on the market, less 1 bedroom, less 1 living room.
So how much did it cost you? So obviously you got some stamp duty, you got some consultant fees. How much did it actually cost you, right, over top of your purchase price? What did it cost you for the stamp duty, any holding costs? We'll go through the spreadsheet in a sec, but I just want it so people understand how much physical money, right, did you have to put into this for the consultants? You put in $55,000, right? And how much more money did you have to put in?
We had to put the balance of the deposit eventually because we went to in this case, we did go to a traditional bank.
Yep.
We borrowed 80%. So we had to come up with the other 15%.
But that was in 5 months, right?
But in 5 months.
Yeah.
But the initial
consultants, so you put down $55,000. And how much did the consultants cost? Because you would have engaged them prior to settling, correct?
In this particular case, there was not many consultants because we are the architects. However,
for someone else,
what would it cost?
Cost?
But having said that, I still treat projects that we do in-house with timesheets and charge out rates and stuff like that. So with us and we had a land surveyor to survey the property. We didn't get soil testing. That's a land survey. I didn't get a town planning consultant. I did my own reports, but let's assume he had to do all that.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at $30,000.
All right, so $85,000. There's a reason why I'm asking this. You've got $85,000 into this project, right? You get the DA as an example, and you're settling the property. It might have not happened in that exact order, right? You might have got the DA a month after, but you should be able to get a DA. I know on the Gold Coast, within that time frame of going unconditional, 5 to 6 months, you have a DA. The reason why I'm asking that is for $85,000 in this deal, by the time you're settling, you could go back to the bank and revalue the property, right? And what would that revalue at?
So we could go back to the bank and ask them to revalue it with the development approval and potential subdivision. They would probably value it conservatively 1.5.
So 1.5. So you've paid 1.1. You've put in an extra 85,000. That 85,000 has given you an extra 400,000 in equity.
That's right.
Which is basically a 450% return
in 6 months.
Roughly within 6 months.
And that's before you've even taken a hammer to the whole building.
So, yeah.
But also, if you use your time wisely in that 5 months, one thing you could do is put it out there in the marketplace that you are going to do this. So the agents in this area talk to other agents. They say, Dom bought this property. We know what Dom's going to do. So immediately I'm getting some offers before approval.
You can even be more proactive again.
So you're proactive. In my case, I did actually have an offer put to us at 1.6. As soon as you get that permit, 1.6 on the table, it's yours.
Wow.
Just to walk away with the DA done.
Walk away?
Yeah.
We didn't get to this level. The developer might want some terms. Yeah. Terms generally means, come on, give us a property straight away.
Yeah.
And 3 or 4 months to get stuck into the project, which I would do.
So Richard, can you now pull up? Let's get into the real numbers because there's a spreadsheet, and there's a few different options that Dom could have went down. Like obviously demolishing and building. He didn't go down that route. So let's go down the road. Is this the one? Is this the option that you took? No. Can you go to another spreadsheet? I think it was the one that's around 3. The net profit about 300 or 350,000. That one there, I think it is. Was it that one that you went with?
So
the spreadsheet might be a bit sort of hypnotizing. Why don't we just talk through the whole?
I think at the end of the day, what I'll say is this. The options were so great on this property. We could keep, do nothing. We could keep and sell with development approval. We could subdivide the land, sell the land off, sell the house off, or go and build. So we had multiple options. Because we got development approval in November of last year, it was too close to Christmas for us to sort of make a quick decision. So we decided to rent it out. But we had an offer of 1.6. So if we look at that offer, which is this deal here, it tells me that if I had accepted that 1.6 offer, we would have made 100% return on our money. We would have doubled our money.
Well, what I think is also interesting for the listener, if you're a first home buyer here, you bought the house, you lopped the land off. Am I right in seeing that the land was valued at $750 on its own, when subdivided off?
That's conservatively.
Okay, so let's just say it's $750.
I'd give that a $750.
Yeah, so you bought this thing for 1.1. You've spent $85,000 on deposit and consulting fees, whatever it was. So $35,000 of it's consulting fees separate to the home. So you spend $35,000 on consulting fees to get the DA. You lop off the side of the house and sell the land. And now this property that you've got that you paid 1.1, you got $750,000 off your mortgage.
There will be other costs associated with subdivision. As soon as you subdivide a property, it's a bit like land subdivision. The land has to be sold off with services. So you've got to put power and water.
But you put power and water, but it's still a huge payment off your mortgage, right, mate? $500,000 or more. Just straight off your mortgage, just because you got a little bit of knowledge about subdivision, putting the DA. And this is the kind of thing that people need to start thinking about instead of saying it's 2 hours getting educated.
Adam, if you had 2 couples do this project, I think I did a summary that Monday night with your crew. 2 couples that approached us and said, hey, couple A, I'll take the land, you take the house. But it's not equal. Let's work out the ratio here. If you keep the house, it's 60% of the deal, and if I keep the land, it's 40%. You're going to end up with more equity than me.
So many ways to skip.
So many ways. So let's do that. If 2 couples had got together and turned up at that auction and only had to come up with less than $30,000 each on the day, go ahead with this deal. And then at the end of the project said, we're going to go our separate ways now. We've gone to a bank together, but now I'm going to my bank because I'm taking the land and you're taking the house. And you go to the bank and you say, hey, Mr. Bank Manager, I want to buy this land. They're going to say, we want 20% deposit. No worries. It's in the land already.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries. Now you might have to contribute 5%. It depends what the...
No, totally. the bottom line is you're adding value, and where you realize it is up to you, whether you,
It's how you do it, right?
how you do it. But
And that's how I did my brother and sister's first entry into the housing market. I could do that with any couple, any collaborative. My son Max, his mates are all mechanics. I said, hey, get all your mates together. We'll do a deal together, and we'll get him into the housing market at 21 years old. What do you reckon, Max? He goes, yeah, Dad, you reckon? I said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. And this is the thing, but it all boils back down to education, right? They're all good sitting here and looking at it and going, you can find these deals every day of the week. But unless you're educated and you know what you're looking for, and we're not talking, it amazes me that people will go to uni for 4 years every day.
That's right.
Right? To be an expert in a trade or whatever they're going to be. Honestly, I think if you actually concentrated on learning about this and contacting guys like Dom and spending $500 or $1,000 sitting down with a town planner and going on these Facebook pages like Australian Property Development and just learning within 3 months and not full time, you would have enough ammo to go out there and find a deal. It might not be a deal that you're going to make $300,000 in.
That's right.
But even if you're making $100,000 within 3 months,
Well, let's
or
stop
within
at the
6
50%
months, right?
return.
Exactly.
Huge.
Like this is a really good one at 100% return, but at 50% return, where else are you going to get that return on, one, your money, but the time, your value of the time that you're actually putting into the deal. And that's why if I was in a position where I'm like, okay, I need to make some money, I need to get educated, what should I do? This would be, other than starting a business, right? Which, like you said, it's a lot. It is harder. It takes more time, and to be honest with you, there is a risk involved. But if you wanted to try and get a quick win, something like this, to me, is a very, very good strategy.
It is. Look, unashamedly, I will launch a course to teach this. It's going to be very, very visual.
sorry, we've got to get that mic sorted.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's going to be very visual and easy to understand, because this sort of deal, it's not been taught, and I think I can show people how to do it. So they could contact me, and in time we'll show them how to go fishing, and they will see the deals. And when they start seeing them, they're everywhere. I saw one last year, a shop with a tenant earning $25,000 and had some land at the back. It was on a corner. The agent was saying you can't fit a house on there, you can't do anything at the back. I looked at it, I could fit 2 houses on there. And the property sold for a bargain of $800,000. We could have easily have bought it, kept the commercial property, added the 2 homes. So these deals are there, but you got to be able to see the deals.
Totally. Yeah, you should
You need
do
the
that.
education.
I did a little property course for my students. We give it to all our coaching clients on commercial, and I actually just took them down to my buildings that I bought and walked them in and showed them around. And it was all shot on a selfie stick. It's not super professional, but the number of people that when they see it, that's why we're doing the Wealth Day with our clients shortly, our coaching clients, putting everyone on a big coach. We're taking them around to our projects, and Carson and Shannon's, who've created millions and millions of dollars of equity through their projects. We're going to put them in a bus, get them out. This is the project. Feel it, touch it, walk around it, see it. It makes it real. And the key to all of this is just doing your first deal. So what, maybe to close that deal out, what actually happened, and then we'll do the second one. If I get up and leave in about 15, 20 minutes, only because I've got another meeting I can't get out of, but I just think keep going, because it's really powerful. What actually happened with this deal in the end?
Okay, so we retained the property because we just felt this is just a once-in-a-lifetime deal. The area's going under massive change. The social housing across the road, which is one of the perceived problems, it's all been demolished into new private homes. We've got 2 kids. We're thinking, do we just keep this for them one day? So the agent that came with the 1.6, I just saw him a week ago. The deal's always there. They're just seasoned developers in the area that want work. So I know this is something that we can keep. So we're going to keep this property. We decided we're not going to sell.
So you haven't done it yet, the project?
No.
Right, so you basically...
We've got development approval.
So you got a DA.
Okay, let me backtrack too. So the DA I got was to retain the existing 2-bedroom dwelling and build a new 3-bedroom home. But once I rented that out, I said to myself, you know what? I'm going back to council because I can do better, and I'm going to break some rules. I'm going to ask them to add another bedroom to the existing dwelling. So I'm breaking the rules now. I can't provide extra car park. I don't meet setbacks. I don't meet that. So I mounted a case and the council agreed and said, yeah. So I improved it even more.
Yeah. Let's talk about this second deal because we are actually running out of time, and I think it'd be great to do this. This second one is a cracker.
It's a beautiful one.
But we've got to move pretty quick because I've got to be out of here, and Eric has. We've both got a call in about 25 minutes. So let's.
Do you want to just race through it quickly?
Yeah, just a high level overview. Tell us tell the viewers who are listening and can't see it what we're looking at, what this property is.
Okay, so this is a former Masonic hall with land. So to run its used by date. It's built in 1880s, and a lot of these Masonic halls and churches, they are being sold off across Australia because people are just not going there anymore. So this has been on the market for a good few years with the Masonic patrons there just wanting too much money. But I love this building because my background is converting old buildings for residential use. So I knew I could do something special with this property, but I also knew it would scare developers because it's heritage listed. So I always knew that the average developer wouldn't touch this property. One day I got a knock on the door. I got a call from a local agent saying, hey, Dom, that property you've been looking at for a while, they've dropped the price dramatically. They're not seeking 3 million plus anymore. They're seeking low twos. I said, what? And he said, can you come down now? We're going to go through it with the listing agent, which is another listing agent. We went through it, and my heart just dropped. This 1880s building was a monster building, on two titles, 2 buildings. And I said to the agent, what do they want? He said they want, they've had offers of 1.9. I said, offer 2.1, we're buying today. We've got to buy today. Don't let go of it. He said, okay, 2.1. I said, 2.1, and offer 6. I'll ask for terms, 6 months, 5%. Just go for it. He rang me that night. He goes, we got it. I said, damn, awesome. So we got it.
So 2.1, 5% deposit, 6 months settlement.
Yeah, but hear me out. So the bank, actually, we went to a second tier loan company, financier, and they said, we'll lend you the money, 75%, but we want the building insured because it's our building. Well, it's going to be our building. Not a problem. We went to insure it, and we got their valuer to value it, and the valuation came back to replace the building, $3 million. Just the building.
Never find the land.
What about the land? Just the building.
So for people listening, we're looking at like a double-story Masonic centre. How much land was there total, and how big was the building?
About 1,000 square metres. The building probably the same, over 2 levels.
Okay, 1,000 square metres of building, 1,000 square metres of land. Where was this in Melbourne?
This is in Moonee Ponds, which is next door to the other project, Moonee Ponds, also within 6 kilometres of the city.
Have the address if people want to Google it.
32 to 34 Maribyrnong Road, Moonee Ponds.
Okay. So you tied this thing up, long settlement, 2.1.
Immediate possession, $3
million insurance valuation.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then what?
Okay. So we're the architects on the project. So I contacted the heritage architect and got on the front foot and said, hey, we bought this building. And I've just done a search, and this building has been subject to massive applications for demolition. There's been argument amongst residences. I'm here to save the day. We're going to keep it all. And the heritage architect said, that's amazing. But we need your help. You need to work with us as the local council. If you want us to keep this entire building, you have to work with us. And the building will stay. We'll add some contemporary additions. So we applied to convert the 2 big buildings into 7 dwellings by retaining 100% of the buildings that are occupying the land, by retaining it, meeting heritage's requirements and adding some contemporary additions. They're happy. They worked with us. This is one of the projects where we worked together. It was awesome. And development went through.
So to convert that building, the big brick 1,000 into apartments, is it?
Not apartments, 7 like 3-level attached townhomes within the volume. Each would have their own entrance, their own car parks, their own everything.
So you're going to put dividing walls.
7 of them.
Yeah, okay.
There's the renders there.
Yeah, that looks sick.
Yeah.
So you've kept the facade, you've divided the length of the building, just sliced.
Kept all the building.
Bread.
It basically went inside the building and said, put a wall here, put a wall here, put a wall here,
and you've extended it out to the side. Is that?
Yeah. So the extensions are the garages, the outdoor terraces.
Yeah. It looks sick.
And the entry going into the building, you can see the doorway there.
It's stunning. It's just.
So this is where finding a great architect with a vision really helps, right?
But if we can talk about what happened to this in terms of investment,
tell us what happened.
Okay, so I needed this. we were going to get a development approval, and we were going to build these buildings. And we've got a strong local presence, our architecture firm. So my wife is an awesome designer, brilliant designer. They all know our work. So we knew we would get top dollar for the completion of this project. We just knew. We have clients ringing us all the time. But this is the key to understanding who your partners are going to be. So in this particular project, when the agent invited me in on the deal, I said, look, let's bring in a third investor, a builder, because we've got an architect, a builder, and a real estate agent. That's a dream team, because the builder's going to build, we're going to design, and the agent's going to market the hell out of this. We all agreed, we're all going to do this, let's just do it. However, when we eventually obtained development approval, the other two investors changed their mind. They saw value in flipping it. And this is where, if you're going to collaborate or get into business with anyone, you have that open and frank discussion from day one and say, well, what's everyone's intention? Because their intentions changed.
So the agent and the builder wanted to flip it.
Flip it.
Okay.
So we were devastated, my wife and I, because we saw massive profit, and we've got a reputation for delivering beautiful buildings. So we felt compelled to do justice to this 1880s building.
And you're the minor shareholder now because you're one of three votes, I imagine.
Can I make it sound even worse for you? So when I brought the builder in, I said to the builder, you're in? He goes, no, got no money. I said, you got to be in. He goes, I can't, I'm committed. I said, I'll lend you the money. He goes, I said, I'll lend you the money on a 7% return. Whatever I pay, where I take it from, you got to pay me back.
So he had a full vote and no money in. So anyway, so they want to flip it. Then what happened?
So the agent rang me and said, we'll flip it. I said, but we all know that in this area, when you flip a property, a developer purchases it on a per site value. So if there are 7 units and the going rate is, say, $350 per unit, 7 threes are 21, 7 fives are 35, that's $2.5 million. We're going to make peanuts. Minor is what the agent said, but that's the rate. They won't pay. They may pay $400,000 per site, so 7 units.
For the land component and whatever.
7 fours are 20. But we might get 2.8 because it's your work. They know your work. They know they'll get. And I was devastated. I said, we can't let this go. I said, no. So they advertised, and they were getting offers around that region. And at the time, I said, look, can you give me a couple of weeks? I've got to think about this. I think we can add more value. And this is where I came into this concept of storytelling. So I spent 1 week full-time creating a story to pitch to other developers about this building. And it was done in a flip book. And basically the story was not just the history of the Masonic movement in this building, but if I were to build and sell it, how I would market and brand the future buildings. So my wife and I looked into the Masonic movement, and we decided that each of these 7 units wouldn't be 7 identical units. We would give them a story. So the first one would be called the Gordon, because the Gordon was the original guy who set up the whole thing. The second was called the Master. The third unit, the Apprentice. The fourth one was called the Journeyman. And the Journeyman is a guy that does his apprenticeship for 7 years, then travels. Anyway, cut a long story short, we gave an identity and we created a brand story, and then we created a strategy to, if we were to sell these on the marketplace and they're finished, the buyers would turn up and say, which one do you want to have a look at? It's to take you through the Journeyman. The Journeyman has been fitted out in the style of someone that travels. It's not literal, but we would sell a story. So I created a flip book. I said to the agent, I've done it now. Now go back on Development Ready website and see if you can attract more buyers. 50 inquiries. First offer, 3.5, based on the story. Second, 3.6, or around that. But anyway, we settled on 3.620. We made 100% return on our money, and the developer wanted me to take him through the building. So I took him through the building, and at the end I said, I won't say his name, but I said, why did you buy the building? Because they're doing it at the moment. Because I love the story, loved it. I can see real potential in this. I'm going to make a stack of money. I said, I know you are.
It's similar to business, right?
Yeah, you got to tell the story. So just to recap the numbers for those who didn't follow it, you bought it for 2.1,
sold at 3.6,
sold at 3.6, and how much in the costs?
Okay,
would somebody else have paid to get an architect to do that?
Their list, I think we spent $50,000 or $60,000,
right?
In terms of architect. There was very.
You look at that though, the deposit plus the architect fees with the long settlement, and you flipped it for like, 1.6 million more, and you were out of pocket for the deposit and the architect fees.
We did eventually settle on the property, so we had to put more money in.
Yeah.
But when we did sell it to the second developer, we asked for a 20% deposit. He had to release the deposit immediately, but we gave him immediate possession. So we took his 700,000 or 800,000, whatever he paid, 740, and we reduced the loan of the second tier lender. We reduced the loan, and we kept 100 to just pay off any things that might come along the way, accountants or whatever.
But at the end of the day, you're out of pocket, even with the settlement and a 20% deposit and everything else. You made a shitload.
We made a shitload of money.
Yeah, it's well done.
It says here about total profit, a little over $1 million at about 113% return.
And you didn't have to build anything.
Didn't have to build it.
It was zealot.
You just had to tell a good story.
Yeah.
Come up with some money, tell a good story.
Adam, all these deals are about telling a good story, whether you're telling it to
And packaging it beautifully.
Packaging
it's like we was doing e-com. You got to package it. You got to present it. You got to photograph it. I mean, these are beautiful renders.
Can I give you a plug?
Sure.
I'll give you a plug. Okay. So at at Reliable, so I was part of the Reliable group, didn't launch anything, but at the end of the day, I took particular notice of when you showed those flip books you created, the barbecue.
Yes, Pangea.
You reverse engineered a potential company.
Yes.
And you were going to sell it. Okay, so if anyone wants to pay for education, this is where you learn a stack load. So from that one document you produced inspired me to create that flip book. I said, what would Adam do? I'm going to reverse engineer it. I'm the developer. What story I want to hear? And I created that flip book I had your barbecue book here, and I had the flip book here.
For the listeners wondering what he's doing about, we used to teach people to sell products on Amazon, but what we did is we put together the sale document of a fully built, functioning Amazon business that was profitable, and we actually physically printed the document that you would use to sell that built, profitable Amazon business. And when we did that, the audience, the first time they ripped that open in the room, they went, oh my God, now I can see how I can make $1 million.
I was there, and that's exactly what happened to me. And I thought, from now on, I'm going to reverse engineer. I'm going to start with the end and work the other way, which is what I did here. We also did it with the little 2-unit one I just showed you on Union Road. We worked out who the avatar was. We were going to go down that path with the flip book, the whole thing. So it's not just because it's this project, any project.
It's really starting with the end in mind, right?
Start with the end.
And selling the dream through a story.
Through a story. Everyone's telling a story, and everyone wants a story to be told.
You look at what Eric's company, Southern Group, does. Like, that's when you're selling off the plan, that they invest massive into renders, beautiful books, all those types of things.
You're selling the dream, right? You're selling.
And so few people do that well. You know, they just don't do it well. You know, we had some kids here the other week, young guys from Melbourne who started a company called Writer Drop, and they sold to Coles and Woolies their future, vitamin powder water thing. They hadn't even made it. It's just a product that they've renders. And they went and pitched Coles and Woolies and said, we want to stock this. And Coles and Woolies gave them 2,200 stores off renders. And then they went, oh shit, we've got to go make it now. They made this beautiful pitch book on who Writer Drop was, the vision, and for everyone else sitting in the room, they're like, what the hell? Like, I didn't even know that was possible. And you've just showed how to make $1 million literally out of thin air.
The reality is that we've completed homes for mums and dads. We've spent 3 years with them in the whole process. We take them through at the end, and they walk in, and the first thing they say is this what it looks like? We're horrified. They actually never knew what it looked like. In other words, what I'm trying to say is they didn't know the story. You need to sometimes show people where you're going.
Totally.
And so I've re-looked at this whole notion of storytelling, branding, and market. It's a massive big deal now in every industry. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're selling a service, a product, a building. If you're not storytelling,
man, you should see James's Hinge profile.
Oh man, that's it.
Talking about telling a story.
That's what you call fiction.
It's like reading the Snow White book, right?
Yeah. There's so many more.
Well, I'll leave you with something that I told my son Max. I said, Max, the scariest thing you could ever do when you first buy your home is say, hey, Dad, I went to a public auction. I put my hand up and I bought it. I said, that would scare the shit. You would devastate me. I said, don't do that. I said, you're going to find a project and you're going to come back and say, Dad, I found a project I'm going to buy and there's investment potential in it and I get a home. That's what I want to
That's
hear.
what you want to hear. Manufacturing the growth.
I don't want them to say in 10 or 15 years that it'll double. What, you're going to lock yourself into the bank for the next 30 years? Yeah. No, I don't want that.
Dom, honestly, this is a topic that I love speaking about.
I talk about it all day.
I talk about this every day with somebody, whether it's James or Adam or anyone else that would like to listen, because this is what really helped me grow my wealth over the years, and I'm still in the trenches, still doing it, and we'll be doing it for a long time. So I appreciate
thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming.
No, thanks for having
flying
me.
up from Melbourne. Appreciate you and the value that you're bringing to the community. You don't see all the messages, and I'm sure you get a lot of.
No, I do get a lot.
Yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing.
Look, it's a great community. You guys have set up a real good community. Great people, and I think, Adam, as you said, it's education. It's the right education, by the way, and it's education from people that are doing it or have done it. There are too many sharks out there spruiking, but they've never done it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
How do people reach you, Dom? So
I think the best way to find me is either at LinkedIn, just by plugging my name, Dominic Bagnato, or at LinkedIn, The Invisible Architect.
And on Instagram, it's
Instagram as well. The
Invisible
Architect.
if you do the course, Dom, please let us know, because we'd love to let our audience know. As you can see, I don't mind endorsing anybody who's putting out great content. I just want people to get the education, and get it.
You're genuine and you're honest. You can feel the energy that you want to help people.
I do. And look, if people even join your courses, I think it's a great way too to get some valuable insights, because I think it goes hand in hand with business.
Yeah.
I think you need business. You just don't. Property in itself isn't enough. I mean, my wife and I, on the back of watching you guys, are launching 2 businesses, because we understand business is a great way to cash flow property. So thanks.
There you have it, guys. Another killer Unemployable podcast. Thank you again. Dom, please share it around. Again, if you're getting value out of this podcast, subscribe. It gets us better guests over time. And thank you for tuning in to this podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.